Vivekachudamani. Vivekachudamani. There is a text in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta, the philosophy of non-duality, that has been carried through the centuries under the name of Shankara, one of the most luminous minds India ever produced. Shankara is placed somewhere in the 8th century, though the honest scholar will tell you the dates are uncertain, and the authorship of this particular work is disputed, with some placing its composition as late as the 14th century. What we can say with confidence is that whoever held the pen understood something precise and urgent about the nature of human suffering and set out to address it directly. The text is called the Vivekachudamani, which translates as the Crest-Jewel of discrimination. Its purpose is singular, to guide the sincere seeker from the mistaken belief that they are a small, separate creature, toward the recognition that their truest nature is identical with the ground of all existence. It is a conversation between a student and a master, and it moves through logic and metaphor and poetry towards something that cannot quite be said, only recognized. Here now is the text itself. The invocation. I bow to the true teacher, Govinda. He is the ocean of bliss. He is the one who is known only when the mind is silent, yet he is the light that makes all knowing possible. Verse 2, for a soul to be born as a living being is a long journey. To be born as a human being is rarer still. To possess a strong body and a sharp mind is a gift. To find the path of the ancient maps, the Vedas, is a miracle. To become a scholar is difficult. But to possess discrimination, the power to tell the real from the unreal, and to finally rest in the identity of the Atman, the innermost self, this is a treasure that cannot be bought with 1 billion lifetimes of merit. Verse 3, there are 3 things that are truly hard to find. They are gifts from the invisible, humanity, the chance to walk between earth and sky, the hunger, the desperate longing to be free, and the master, the protection of a great soul. Verse 4, if a man has found all 3, a human body, the will to wake up, and a guide to lead him, and yet he does not strive for the truth, he is a self-slayer. He is killing his own soul by clinging to things that are already dead. Verse 5, who is more foolish than the one who wins a human life, this rare and beautiful fortress, and then spends it playing with shadows. Verse 6, let them recite the poems, let them worship the gods, let them perform the 1,000 rites, but until a man realizes his own oneness with the light, he will not be free, not even in 100 ages of the Creator. Verse 7, the Vedas scream it from the mountain tops, wealth cannot buy immortality, rituals cannot buy immortality, only the truth can set you free. Verse 8, therefore the wise man gives up the hunt for pleasure, he leaves the house of me and mine, he seeks out a teacher who is quiet, vast, and deep. He surrenders his mind to the instruction. Verses 9 through 14. The wise man knows that whatever is perceived by the senses, form and sound and taste and touch and smell, belongs to the world of the changing. He has studied the sacred knowledge. He has served the teacher. He has put his questions honestly. Now he prepares to go further than study can take him. He wraps himself in the 4 great preparations: the ability to tell the real from the unreal, the turning away from the fruits of action in this world and in any world, the 6 inner disciplines that steady the mind, and the burning desire to be free. Without these, The inquiry into the self is like trying to start a fire in the rain, and the preparations are not a burden, they are the natural fruit of a life lived with some sincerity. The river does not force its way to the ocean. It follows the shape of the land, and the ocean receives it. Verse 15, a man can only see the truth for himself. A scholar can explain the word honey, but he cannot give you the taste. You must eat it. You must walk the path with your own feet. Verse 17, the master said, "You have the hunger, my son, but hunger is not enough to cross the woods. To succeed, you must carry the 4 strengths. Only the one who is armed with these is fit to inquire into the truth." Verse 19, what are the 4 strengths? Discrimination, the sword; dispassion, the shield; the 6 assets of will; and the hunger for freedom, the fire. Verse 20, what is discrimination? It is the iron certainty that the self is real and the world is a shadow. It is the power to look at a cloud and see the sky behind it. It is knowing that the I is eternal, while the body and its stories are dust that blows away in the wind. Verse 21, what is dispassion? It is the refusal to eat the poisoned apple of pleasure. Whether it is a feast on earth or a crown in the gardens of the gods, the wise man turns away. He knows that any joy that comes from an object will eventually rot. He stands in the world, but he does not let the world inside him. Verse 22, the first of the 6 assets is quietness. It is holding the wolf of the mind by the ears. It is the ability to keep the mind locked on its goal, away from the noise of 1,000 desires. Verse 23, the second is taming. It is shutting the gates of the senses. It is pulling the eyes back from the sight, the ears from the sound, and the hands from the touch. It is being the master of your own house. Verse 24, the third is endurance. It is standing in the fire and the snow without weeping. It is bearing the heat and the cold, the praise and the insult, without reaching for a shield or a sword. It is the silence of the brave. Verse 25, the fourth is trust. It is the certainty that the map is true. It is believing the words of the master and the ancient texts as if they were written in the stars. Without trust, the traveler is lost in the first fog. Verse 26, the fifth is focus. It is the single eye. It is the mind that rests in the infinite and does not waver, like a flame in a windless place. Verse 27, what is the hunger? It is the scream of a man whose hair is on fire, looking for a lake. It is the burning desire to break the chains of me and mine. It is the will to wake up, no matter what it costs. Verse 29, if your dispassion and your hunger are strong, the other weapons will follow. They will shine like jewels on your chest. Verse 30, but if your dispassion is weak and your hunger is just a whisper, the 6 assets are nothing but glass. They will break at the first touch of temptation. Verse 31, among all these, devotion is the highest. And what is devotion? It is not singing songs to a distant God. It is the constant, fierce search for your own true nature. Verse 33, the student finds the master. The master is a sea of mercy. He is like the springtime. He brings life to everything he touches without asking for anything in return. He has crossed the ocean of the world himself, and now he stands on the shore, helping others across. Verse 35. The student falls at his feet and cries, "O Master, look at me. I am burning in the forest fire of this world. I am being tossed by the winds of my own mistakes. I am terrified of death. Save me. I have no other refuge." Verse 41. The Master looks at him with eyes full of peace. He sees that the student is ready, washed clean by his own tears. He speaks with a voice like a deep bell. Verse 43. Do not be afraid, my son. You are not in danger. There is a way out of this dream. There is a path that the sages have walked since the beginning of time. I will show it to you. Verse 47. The cause of your suffering is a simple mistake. You think you are the body. You have forgotten that you are the king. I will give you the weapon of discrimination. It will cut the knot of your heart. Verse 48 and 49. The student sat by the fire of the Master's presence. He did not ask for wealth or long life. He asked for the keys to the prison. He said, "Master, tell me, what is this bondage? How did it come to be? How does it stay alive? How is it cast off? What is this not self? Who is the supreme self? And how can I tell them apart? Speak to me so that I may be fulfilled." Verse 50. The Master smiled. "You are blessed," he said. "You have sanctified your whole family line. Most people want to decorate their chains. You want to break them." Verse 51. Listen. A son can pay off his father's debts. A friend can carry your heavy bag for a mile. But when it comes to the chains of avidya, the great misidentification, no one can break them but you. Verse 52. If a man is hungry, someone else can eat a feast in front of him, but his own stomach will remain empty. He must chew, he must swallow. Verse 53. If a man is sick, he can hire a doctor and buy the finest medicine. But if he only keeps the bottle on his shelf and recites the name of the drug, his fever will never break. He must swallow the medicine. Verse 54. You can look at a map of a mountain, but you cannot feel the wind on the peak. You can describe the beauty of the moon to a blind man, but he will not see it. You must use your own eyes. Verse 58. The world is full of clever men. They have loud voices. They can explain the grammar of every text. They weave beautiful nets of words. But these nets are only for the entertainment of the mind. They are for profit and for praise. They are not for freedom. Verse 59. If you do not know the truth, studying the books is useless. And if you do know the truth, studying the books is also useless. The map is not the territory. Verse 60. The scriptures are like a dense forest of words. The mind wanders there and gets lost. Stop talking, look at the self. Verse 65. Imagine there is a massive treasure of gold buried under your house. To get it, you must hear that it is there. Then you must move the heavy stones. Then you must dig into the dark earth. Then you must lift the lid of the chest. Will the gold come to you if you sit on your porch and shout, "Come out, O gold"? No, so it is with the self. You must hear the truth from the Master. Then you must reflect. Then you must dig through the layers of your own ego. Only then will you be the king. Verse 66. Therefore, stop dreaming. Put your hand to the shovel. A wise man works as hard to cure his soul as he would to cure a deadly poison in his blood. Verse 68. I will tell you how to begin. I will show you how to separate the I from the mine. Listen well, and keep these words in your heart. Verse 72. Look at this body. It is a fortress built of marrow, bone, fat, flesh, blood, skin, and hair. It is held together by limbs, legs, thighs, chest, arms, back, and head. Verse 73. This is what the world calls I and mine. It is the house of delusion. The wise call it the gross body. It is made of the heavy elements, sky, air, fire, water, and earth, which have been mixed and hardened into stone and flesh. Verse 75. Look at the people of the world. They are bound by the ropes of their own senses. They are dragged here and there by the messengers of their own past actions. They are like sheep being led to the blade. Verse 76. Consider the animals, each destroyed by a single sense. The deer is lured to its death by the sound of the flute. The elephant is trapped by the touch of the female. The moth flies into the flame because it is dazzled by the light. The fish bites the hook for the sake of the taste. The bee is trapped in the lotus because it is drunk on the scent. Each of these dies for a single pleasure. What then will be the fate of man, who is hunted by all five at once? Verse 77. The poison of the world is more deadly than the venom of a cobra. A cobra only kills when it bites you, but the objects of the senses kill you just by being seen. Verse 83. He who spends his life only feeding and decorating this body is like a man who tries to cross a deep river by clinging to a crocodile, thinking it is a log of wood. He will be eaten before he reaches the shore. Verse 84. If you want to see the self, you must stop feeding the crocodile. You must kill the obsession with the body. Only then can you stand on the solid ground of the real. Verse 96. Inside the cage of bone is a second cage, woven of wind and thought. This is the subtle body. It has 17 parts, the 5 gates of knowing, eyes, ears, and the rest, the 5 tools of action, hands, feet, and the rest, the 5 winds of life that move through us, the mind that doubts, and the intellect that decides. Verse 97. This is the instrument. It is born from the subtle elements. It carries the memories of 1,000 lifetimes. It is the ghost that experiences the results of your actions. Because of your own ignorance, this instrument feels like your true self. Verse 98. The subtle body is the land of dreams. When the physical eyes are shut, the mind creates its own world. It acts as the doer. It acts as the enjoyer. It shines by its own light, weaving a play out of the threads of the day. Verse 99. But listen, the witness, the true eye, just watches the play. It is not stained by the actions of the dream. It is like a king who watches a dance performance. The king does not become the dancer, nor does he become the stage. He is free and he is separate. Verse 108. Behind the curtain of the world is a power. She is called Maya. She has no beginning. She is the magic of the Lord himself. She is the womb of the universe. She is not real, for she vanishes in the light of wisdom. She is not unreal, for she builds the mountains you walk on. She is a riddle that words cannot solve. Verse 110. Maya is woven of 3 colored threads, darkness, passion, and harmony. You can know them by the tracks they leave in your mind. Verses 111 and 112. The first thread is darkness. This is the power of veiling. It is a thick, heavy fog. It covers the brilliance of the self the way clouds cover the sun. It makes the truth look like a lie and the lie look like the truth. It is the mother of laziness, sleep, and confusion. Even a brilliant man, if he is wrapped in this black thread, cannot see the sun standing right in front of him. This is where the trouble begins, not in desire, but in the blindness that comes before desire. You cannot reach for the wrong thing until you can no longer see the right one. Verses 113 through 116. Once the veiling has done its work, the second thread goes to work. This is passion, the power of projection. It is a wild, restless wind. Having hidden the truth, it now fills the empty space with substitutes. It creates desire, anger, greed, and arrogance. It is the doer who is never satisfied. It makes the soul run in circles, chasing shadows, thinking they are gold. The veiling makes you forget who you are. The projection invents a replacement. Together they build the prison, first the darkness, then the bars. Verses 117 through 119. The third thread is harmony. This is the power of clarity. It is like pure, still water. It creates peace, joy, and the longing for freedom. It is the mirror in which the self reflects most clearly. When this thread is strong, the soul begins to remember its own name. Verse 140. When the thread of darkness covers the sun of the self, the soul becomes a stranger to itself. Then the thread of passion goes to work. It binds the soul with the ropes of I and mine. It drags the soul through the brambles of hunger, thirst, and fear. Verse 141. The soul is like a man caught in the jaws of a great sea monster. He is swallowed by the wave of his own delusions. He acts out 1,000 different roles, beggar, king, victim, and forgets that he is the one watching the play. Verse 145. Look at the life of the ego. It is a tree, the seed is ignorance. The sprout is the thought, I am this body. The leaves are desires and cravings. The sap is past action. The branches are the vital breaths and the senses. The flowers are the objects of the world. The fruit is suffering and pain, and the bird is the soul perched on the branch, eating the bitter fruit. Verse 147. This tree is ancient. It has no end. It cannot be cut by fire, or by wind, or by any weapon of the world. It can only be felled by the sword of discrimination. This sword must be sharpened by the master's words. It must be swung with the strength of a clean heart. Verse 148. When the tree falls, the forest of birth and death vanishes. Then you are no longer the bird eating the bitter fruit. You are the sun that lights the forest. You are the truth that remains when the shadow is gone. Verse 149. The self is like pure, cool water in a pond, but it is covered by the green moss of the 5 sheaths. Because of the moss, you cannot see the water. You think the pond is made of weeds. Verse 150. When you push the moss aside, the water appears instantly. It is clear. It is sweet. It satisfies the thirst of the soul. So too, when you peel away the sheaths, the self shines in its own glory as pure joy. Verse 154. Look at the physical body. It is the sheath of food. It is born from food, it lives on food, and it dies without food. It is a bag of skin, flesh, blood, bone, and filth. How can this be the I? The I is the knower of the bag. It is not the bag itself. Verse 155. Before you were born, this body was not here. When you die, it will rot and become dirt. It is a thing that changes every second. You are the witness of the change. The witness cannot be the thing it watches. Verse 165. Beneath the body is the sheath of breath. This is the vital force. It moves the limbs. It drives the organs. It is the energy that makes the machine go. Verse 166. Is this the self? No, the breath is just air moving in and out. It is like the wind that blows through a house. The wind is not the householder. The breath has no knowledge. It does not know I am. You are the one who knows the breath. Set aside the sheath of breath. Verse 167. Beneath the breath is the sheath of mind. This is the factory of I and mine. It is a storm of doubts, desires, and changing moods. It is the cause of all bondage, because it creates the dream of the world. Verse 168. The mind is like a fire. It burns with the fuel of sensory objects. It creates a me that wants and a you that is feared. But the mind has a beginning and an end. It is an instrument, like a telescope. You are the eye looking through the telescope. Set aside the sheath of mind. Verse 184. Beneath the mind is the sheath of intellect. This is the doer. It is the shadow of consciousness reflecting in the brain. It says, I am an actor, I am a student, I am a success. Verses 185 through 190. This is the most dangerous disguise. Because it looks so much like the self, the soul gets lost here for lifetimes. It travels from life to life, carrying the heavy bag of its own history. But even this intellect is just a modification of nature. It is a light that is borrowed from the sun. Set aside the sheath of intellect. Verse 207. Beneath the intellect is the sheath of bliss. This is the peace you feel in deep sleep. It is the joy you feel when you receive a great gift or see a beloved face. It is a faint reflection of the self's true joy. Verse 209. But even this bliss is a sheath. It depends on circumstances. It comes and goes. It is the finest clothing of the ego, but it is still clothing. You are the witness of the joy and the witness of its absence. Set aside the sheath of bliss. Verse 210. When all five sheaths are set aside, the body, the breath, the mind, the intellect, and the bliss, what remains? Verse 211. The witness remains. It is the eye that cannot be removed. It is the light that knows the five sheaths are gone. It is the unchanging, the formless, the supreme, that is you. Verse 212. The student asked, Master, you have stripped me bare. I have set aside the body, the breath, the mind, the intellect, and even the joy of deep sleep. When all these are gone, I see only a void. What is this self that remains? How can I know it if there is nothing left to see? Verse 213. The Master replied, You are wise to ask. The self is not an object that you see with your eyes. It is the seer. It is the one who knows that the void is there. It is the witness of the nothing. Verse 214. Imagine a dark room. You cannot see the furniture, but you know you are standing in the room. That knowing does not need a lamp. It is its own light. So too the self is self-luminous. It is the knower of the ego, the knower of the mind, and the knower of the silence. That which knows everything, but which nothing can know, that is you. Verse 225. What is this reality? It is truth. It is knowledge. It is infinite. It is the solid mass of pure joy. It is the unmoving ground on which the movie of the world is projected. It is the one without a second. Verse 226. In the light of the final truth, there is no other. There is no world, no stars, no gods, and no men. There is only the one ocean, calm and silent. The names and forms we see are just ripples on the surface. The ripple is nothing but water. The world is nothing but the ground of being. Verse 241. Now listen to the great sentence, that thou art. The Vedas repeat this whisper again and again, but to understand it, you must look beneath the masks. Verse 242. Look at the word that. It refers to the Lord, the creator of the stars, the all-knowing, the eternal. Look at the word thou. It refers to the individual, the one who suffers, the one who is small, the one who dies. How can the firefly be the sun? How can the drop be the ocean? Verses 243 through 245. The contradiction is only in the clothing. The Lord wears the clothing of total power. The individual wears the clothing of little power. But if you take off the royal robes and you take off the beggar's rags, the consciousness underneath is identical. Just as the space inside a jar and the space outside the jar are the same space, so too, the light in the heart of the Lord and the light in your own heart are the same light. Verse 248. When you say, "This is that same man I saw yesterday," you ignore the fact that he is wearing a different shirt today. You ignore the time and the place. You look only at the man. So too, when the Veda says that thou art, it asks you to ignore the lordship and the limitation. It asks you to look only at the awareness. Consciousness equals consciousness. This is the math of freedom. Verse 251. Everything made of clay is just clay. Everything made of gold is just gold. Everything born of the real is the real. Therefore, give up the dream of being a separate, small creature. Realize that you are the vast, unconditioned reality, that thou art. Meditate on this until the wall of the heart breaks. Verses 254 through 263. Now, my son, take these 10 truths into your heart. Meditate on them until your mind becomes the very thing it thinks. In the silence of your soul, say to yourself, that which has no caste, no creed, no family name, that which is beyond name and form, beyond merit and sin, beyond space and time, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which the highest speech cannot reach, but which is the goal of the clear eye of wisdom, that which is pure, massed consciousness, without beginning or end, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which is untouched by the 6 waves of life, hunger, thirst, grief, delusion, decay, and death, that which the seeker finds in the secret chamber of the heart, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which is the support of the universe and its magic, that which is separate from the seen and the unseen, that which is simple, whole, and incomparable, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which knows no birth, no growth, no ripening, no decay, and no death, that which is the cause of the world's birth and the world's end, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which has no parts, no movement, and no ripple, that which is like a vast, windless ocean, eternally free and eternally still, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which is the one, the cause of the many, the cause that dissolves all other causes, that which is different from doing and being done, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which is beyond the changing and the unchanging, that which is the highest, the eternal, the joy that never fades, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which appears as many because of our own confusion, just as gold appears as many different rings and bracelets, but itself never changes, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. That which shines alone, higher than the highest, the innermost essence, the truth, the awareness, the joy, that Brahman art thou. Meditate on this in your heart. Verse 267. The student says, Master, I see it, I am the light, but beware, even after the truth is known, the ancient habit remains. It is a deep, stubborn root that whispers, I am the doer, I am the sufferer. This habit is the cause of the long wandering. You must dissolve it with the constant gaze of the witness. Verse 268. Whenever the thought, I am this body or this is mine rises in you, cut it down. Rest only in your own true nature. Verses 270 through 272. There are three chains that keep a man tied to the earth. The chain of the world, obsession with what people think. The chain of the books, obsession with endless study and ritual. The chain of the body, obsession with health, beauty, and comfort. As long as these three are strong, the light of the self cannot be seen. They are like iron shackles on the feet of a prisoner. Break them, and you will walk. Verse 273. Consider a piece of sandalwood. If it is left in the mud, it begins to smell of rot and filth. But the fragrance is not gone. It is only covered. When you scrub the wood clean, the divine scent returns instantly. Verse 274. So it is with your soul. It is covered by the dust of 1,000 desires. When you scrub away the dust with the brush of inquiry, the fragrance of the self fills the world. Verses 280 through 284. How do you scrub? By reversing the flow. When the mind runs outward to the world, pull it back to the I. When the ego claims a success, give it back to the whole. Do not give the mind a single moment of rest. Work until the thought, I am the body, is as dead as a fallen leaf. Verse 288. Just as the space inside a jar becomes the great space when the jar is broken, break the jar of the me. Be silent, be still, be the great space. Verse 302. The treasure of the bliss of Brahman is hidden deep within you, but it is guarded by a terrible sentinel, the ego. It is a massive, many-headed black snake. Its heads are the three strands of nature. It coils itself around the treasure and strikes at anyone who approaches. Verse 303. Do not be fooled. As long as there is even a drop of venom, the thought of I and mine, remaining in the body, how can there be perfect health? As long as the ego breathes, the seeker is not yet free. Verse 309. The ego is a master of disguise. Even if you cut it down, it can sprout again if you give it a single moment of attention. It is like a thundercloud in the dry season. If the wind of desire blows for a second, the cloud returns and the rain of sorrow begins to fall. Verse 310. Do not give the enemy any ground. Do not feed the ghost with thoughts of objects. Just as a dried-up lemon tree turns green again when you pour water on its roots, the ego returns to life the moment you start thinking about the world. Verse 321, carelessness is death. In the life of a seeker, there is no enemy greater than distraction. From distraction comes delusion. From delusion comes the I, from the I comes bondage, and from bondage comes the long, slow pain. Verse 323, if the mind turns toward the world even for a heartbeat, it is like a man who forgets his own nature. It is as if a woman's mind is stolen away by a lover. She forgets her house, her duties, and her name. Verse 324, just as the green moss on a pond is pushed aside by a stick, but returns the moment the stick is gone, so too, Maya covers the mind of even a wise man if he stops being vigilant. The darkness is always waiting for the light to flicker. Verse 325, watch your mind. If it slips from the truth even an inch, it will fall. It is like a ball dropped at the top of a steep flight of stairs. Once it begins to roll, it bounces from step to step, faster and faster, until it crashes at the bottom in the mud of the senses. Verse 342, the ego is a high wall. It cannot be climbed by logic alone. It can only be broken by samadhi, the state where the mind becomes as still as a stone. Only in that absolute silence does the snake die and the treasure reveal its light. Verses 344 and 345. You must become a surgeon. Separate the seer from the seen as clearly as you separate water from milk. Cut the knot of I am the body with the sword of clear awareness. Once that knot is cut, it can never be tied again. The snake is dead. The thief is gone. The palace is open. Verse 349. Just as a piece of iron, when it stays in the forge, takes on the heat and the glow of the fire, so too the mind, when it stays in the presence of the self, becomes the self. The boundaries melt. The darkness is consumed. Verse 353. The knot in the heart is only truly untied when the mind enters samadhi, the state without form. In that absolute stillness, the two become one. The seeker vanishes, and only the sought remains. Verse 358. Consider the caterpillar and the wasp. The wasp captures the caterpillar and places it in its nest. The caterpillar, imprisoned there, thinks of nothing but the wasp, holds it so completely in its awareness, meditates on it so continuously and with such totality of mind that it is gradually transformed and becomes like the wasp itself. This is the teaching. Sustained, unbroken meditative identification is the power that transforms. The mind becomes what it dwells on. How much more powerful, then, is the mind that turns its complete and continuous attention toward the infinite. Think only of Brahman. Dwell there without interruption. Become that. Verse 359. Think of a grain of salt. As long as it sits on the shore, it has a name, a shape, and a weight. But the moment it touches the ocean, the name and shape are gone. It does not meet the ocean. It becomes the ocean. This is the end of the journey for the soul. Verse 361. Just as gold is put into the fire to burn away the dross until only the pure, shining metal remains, the mind must be put into the fire of meditation. The dirt of I and mine must be burned away until the mind becomes as pure as the light it reflects. Verse 362. When the mind is cooked in this fire, it loses its restless nature. It sinks into the Brahman like a drop of water into a jar of milk. There is no longer any difference in flavor, color, or essence. Verse 366. Watch your mind like a lamp. If there is the slightest wind of desire, the flame will flicker and the shadows will return. But if you guard the flame, if you sit in the windless place of the heart, the light will be steady. It will burn through the ancient darkness of 1,000 lives. Verse 367. The rungs of the ladder are these: silence of the tongue, refusal to possess, freedom from hope, indifference to result, and love for the lonely place. These are the paths that lead to the door of Samadhi. Verse 368. This stillness is the only path to the nectar. Therefore, the sage shuts the gates of the senses. He locks the mind on the eye, he drowns the ego in the silence of the witness. He is like a man who has found a treasure in a cave and remains there, forgetting that the world outside ever existed. Verse 369. Withdraw the speech into the mind, withdraw the mind into the intellect, withdraw the intellect into the witness, and finally dissolve the witness into the infinite. This is the great peace. This is the end of the war. Verses 408 through 480. Now came the long silence before the dawn. The student went away and sat alone. Days passed, or perhaps years. Time had begun to lose its grip. He sat in the presence of what the master had given him, and he turned it over and over in his mind, the way a jeweler turns a stone under the light, looking for the place where it opens. He practiced what he had been taught. He withdrew the senses from the world. He pulled the mind back from its usual hunting. He held the intellect steady at the edge of the silence. And then, slowly, something began to happen that he had no words for. The thoughts did not stop all at once. They thinned. They became like smoke rather than fire. The sense of being a separate person sitting in a separate body in a separate world began to waver at the edges, the way a painting wavers when you look at the brush strokes rather than the image. He would rest there at the edge, and then the habit of a lifetime would pull him back, and he would find himself again in the familiar room of his own worries. But each time he returned to the practice, the edge was a little closer. The silence was a little louder. He began to see what the master meant about the witness. There was something watching all of this, the effort, the failure, the return, the thinning of thoughts. Something that had been watching from the very beginning, that had watched every dream and every waking moment, that had never been absent for a single breath. He could not quite call it himself, because it seemed larger than himself. But he also could not call it other, because there was no distance between him and it. It was as if he had been looking for his own eyes with his own eyes. The seeker and the sought were turning out to be made of the same substance. He sat with this. The mind tried to make it into a philosophy, to file it under a heading, to write a sentence about it that would settle the matter. But every sentence fell short. The thing he was touching was not a thought. Thoughts could describe the shore, but the shore was not the water. He set each sentence aside as it arose and returned to the simple fact of knowing, the bare, clear, undeniable fact that he was aware, right now, in this moment, without any effort at all. And then one morning, or perhaps one evening, he could no longer be certain, the edge disappeared. There was no gradual approach, no crossing over. One moment the student was sitting at the boundary, and the next moment there was no boundary. The room that had seemed to contain him simply turned out to be him. The silence was not outside his mind. It was what his mind had always been made of. He did not shout. He did not weep. There was no one to shout and no one to weep. There was only this, the clear, steady, boundless fact of being, shining by its own light, containing everything, needing nothing, going nowhere, coming from nowhere, never having been anywhere else. The world did not disappear. The trees were still trees. The sky was still sky, but they were no longer outside him, looking in. They were happening inside the same awareness that he himself was. The river was still flowing. He had simply recognized that he was the water and also the flowing and also the recognition itself. He stayed there for a long time, not because there was anywhere to go, but because there was nowhere else to be. When the mind arose again, as minds do, because that is their nature, he watched it arise the way you watch a wave rise from the ocean, knowing the whole time that the wave is nothing but ocean, that its rising changes nothing about the ocean's nature, that when it falls back, it has not gone anywhere at all. This was the passage through the long valley. This was what the master had been pointing at from the beginning, not a destination that the student would arrive at, but a recognition of what had always been the case. He was not becoming free. He was seeing that he had never been bound. Verse 481. Slowly his mind returned to the shore of the world, but he was not the same man. His eyes were bright with a light that does not come from the sun. He looked at his master and spoke, his voice trembling with a joy that had no cause. My mind has vanished. My desires have melted away. I have realized the oneness of the self and the absolute. Now I do not know this world, nor do I know that world. I only know a happiness that has no end. Verse 482. How can I describe the majesty of this ocean of bliss? The mind cannot reach it. Words are like birds that fall into the sea before they can cross it. My mind was like a grain of salt that tried to measure the depth of the ocean, and in the trying, it became the ocean itself. Verse 483. Where has the world gone? Who took it away? In what has it vanished? Just a moment ago, it was standing there, solid and heavy. Now it is nowhere to be found. What a great wonder this is. Verse 488. I am blessed. I am fulfilled. I am free from the mouth of the great sea monster of birth and death. By your mercy, Master, I have found the treasure. I am joy itself. I am fullness itself. Verses 489 and 490. I have no body, I have no limbs, I have no name, I have no end. I am the peace that stands behind all noise. I am the ancient one, the stainless one. I am the pure awareness. I am the one, the eternal, the supreme. Verse 492. I am not this object, and I am not that thought. I am the light that reveals them both. I am the space inside the jar, and I am the space outside the jar. I am the one without a second. Verse 496. In the vast ocean of my own bliss, the waves of 1,000 universes rise and fall. They are driven by the wind of Maya. They appear, they play for a moment, and they vanish. But I, the ocean, do not increase when they rise, and I do not decrease when they fall. Verse 500. I have no connection to the body, just as the sky has no connection to the clouds that float through it. The clouds may be black with rain or white with sun, but the sky remains forever blue, forever untouched. How can the waking, dreaming, or sleeping states belong to me? They are just weather. I am the sky. Verse 501. The costume comes and goes. The costume acts and eats and dies. But I am like the mountain. I stand unmoving while the seasons change around me. I am the witness of the drama, but I am not the actor. Verse 502. I am the unbroken whole. How can I move? Where would I go? There is no place where I am not already. I am the space that holds the stars. Verse 517. All this empire of peace, this majesty of soul, I have found it only by the grace of your look. You are the sun that has melted my ice. You are the great soul. To you, my teacher, I bow again and again. Verse 518. I was wandering in a nightmare, lost in the dark woods of birth and death. I was hunted by the tiger of the ego, but you woke me from the dream. You saved me from the ghost. I am home. Verse 521. The master looked at the student and spoke for the last time. Now that you have seen the truth, do not hide from the world. Move through it with a quiet mind. See the universe as Brahman, whether you are sitting in silence or walking in the marketplace. Verse 542. A man who is free may appear in many forms. Sometimes he looks like a fool, sometimes like a king. Sometimes he wanders like a ghost, and sometimes he sits in majesty. Sometimes he is honored, and sometimes he is insulted. But inside, he is always the same. He is the ocean of bliss, and nothing can touch his heart. Verse 544. He acts, yet he knows he is not the doer. He eats, yet he knows he is not the enjoyer. He has a body, yet he knows he is bodiless. Though he seems limited to a single place, he knows he is everywhere. Verse 549. Consider the snake. When it casts off its old skin, it leaves it behind on the forest floor. The snake does not look back. It does not care if the skin is trodden on by cattle or blown by the wind. It has a new life. It has moved on. Verse 550. So it is with the sage. He has cast off the skin of the body. He lets the arrow of destiny carry the body wherever it must go. He remains as the witness, unmoving, silent, and free. The body is just a dry leaf being carried by the stream of time. Verse 558. Liberation is not the death of the body. Liberation is the death of the knot of the heart, the ignorance that says, I am this. When that knot is cut, the man is free, whether the body remains for a day or for 100 years. Verse 565. When a jar is broken, the space inside the jar is not destroyed. It simply becomes the great space it always was. So too, when the body falls, the knower does not go to heaven. The knower does not travel at all. He simply realizes that he has always been the infinite. Verse 566. Milk poured into milk, oil poured into oil, water poured into water. They become one, so the soul of the sage becomes one with the Absolute. There is no return. There is no more me. Verse 575. I have shown you the secret, my son. I have handed you the jewel. You are free from the fever of the world. Go now, walk in the light. Verse 576. The student bowed at the master's feet with tears of gratitude. He rose and walked away, but he did not walk alone. He walked as the universe itself. The chains were gone. the dream was over. Verse 580. For those who are exhausted by the burning sun of the world, who wander in the desert of desire looking for water, this teaching is the ocean of nectar. It is the only peace. Victory to the great teachers, victory to the truth. Here ends the Vivekachudamani, the Crest-Jewel of discrimination.